Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stigler for the Details. My name is Stigler or Alan Dickerson, known as various names over the internet. And today I thought I would react to a request that was posted on the Great Battles of the American Civil War Facebook site about a quick and dirty primer on brigade coordination. Um, there wasn't a lot of detail in the request, but I am assuming that the original poster wanted to know not only how brigade coordination is done in series games, but also why anyone would would use brigade coordination. So I thought I would cobble together a quick example from 3 Days of Gettysburg and explain not only how how it's done, but also why, and also the pros and cons, or the risks and reward ratio for attempting brigade coordination. Okay, so we're going to start here with our classic Gettysburg opening of Buford versus Heath, and I've dived back into an old situation save, and I've modified it a lot. So this is probably not a situation that you might find actually happening on the first day of Gettysburg, but for our purposes, it will work well. So here we have Heath's division here, and as you can see, he is stacked with Archer, the 3rd Brigade, and on his left is Pettigrew, the 1st Brigade, and on his right is Davis, the 4th Brigade. Um, I've moved these up because normally Pettigrew, as you can see from this unit here, would normally be strung out along this road, which you see I have denuded of units, and I've swung them around over here uh, to help provide the example. There's one more regiment, so let me pop him up over there just to create a better example. Okay, so we have basically three whole brigades of Heath's division arrayed in front of one brigade of Buford's, that being Gamble. So you obviously you can tell which brigades are which from the yellow cohesion squares on Gamble's units, and from the yellow, white, and blue cohesion squares of Pettigrew, Archer, and Davis, respectively. Okay, so what you can see here instantly is that Heath has three brigades here to Gamble's one. And so it would seem that Heath has a bit of an advantage here, which he certainly does in numbers. But the way the rules are in Great Battles of the American Civil War, each one of these brigades has to activate independent of the others whenever Heath division activates. So what that means is, say we pull a Heath activation chit out of the draw pool. First thing Heath has to do is decide, whether or what orders his brigadiers are going to adopt. And as we can see right now, Archer is already under attack orders, but Pettigrew here and Davis here are not yet in attack orders. So if he if the Confederate player wants to launch an all-out attack here on Herd's Ridge, he would first want to get Pettigrew under attack orders and possibly Davis. Davis looks like he might actually want to do a little bit more maneuvering, but he could, say, with this unit here, he could mount a cavalry, or not a cavalry, an infantry charge and slam into these two units here. So also what would happen is that for each brigade that would activate in turn, they would be subject to approach fire from this battery. If they moved adjacent, uh, each of these units for the Union, if they were fired at themselves, would be able to return fire each time these brigades activated. So in other words, if okay, let's look at the seam here between Pettigrew and Archer's brigade. If he chose to say activate Archer first, let's say this unit decides to move up here and fire under attack orders, then this unit would be able to fire back at it. And then, depending on the results of that, he may decide to try to shock this unit. And then, after that were done, he could finish with Archer's brigade and then say activate Pettigrew's brigade and then maybe bring this unit up to fire. And then this unit, if it were still there and still in good shape, would be able to fire back at that unit. So the rule is that for each brigade activation, a given non-phasing unit will get to use its return fire, will get to use approach fire from artillery, will get to do all of these things. So depending on the shape that the attacking units are in, they're going to be giving up 2 or 3 shots or return fire to the defending units. Now, what if the Confederates were able to coordinate these brigades, say 2 or 3 or even all of them, and then they could basically do what amounts to a Zulu charge on these units. So let's say Archer and Pettigrew. Let's be conservative and just say, what if 2 brigades of the Union's choice were able to mount the attack? And let's say Pettigrew, with his +2 order change modifier, were able to switch to attack mode, which is fairly likely. What if they were able to attack like this? Let's, oops. We're actually back here, and then, oops. There we go. This unit would have come off of the road, so he would be facing a vertus, as would he, facing a vertus. Okay. And let's say that get him in under there, etc., etc. Get Archer to join the attack. Now, what if, say, all of these were able to, if they, moved up, say, and didn't fire, they were all able to launch a shock attack at once. It would be devastating for these units here, even with 9 in this hex, 5 in this hex, but disordered against these huge regiments here. That would literally be a game changer, and that is the the reward for being able to coordinate a brigade. Now let's talk about the risk. The risk is that whenever you want to attempt to coordinate brigades, you have to roll on the brigade coordination table, and there is a risk that if you roll super low, you can get the worst result, which is confusion. And that's where not only do you not get to coordinate any brigades, everybody just kind of stands around going, I got it, you take it, what are we doing now? And nobody does anything. So in effect, you waste the entire activation. So that is a pretty bad penalty. But also, some of the results are that you simply fail to coordinate, but you don't suffer any penalty. So if you roll for coordination and you fail, that simply means, okay, you don't get to coordinate. So now you do have to move each brigade independently and do it the quote unquote normal way. But on the plus side, you can get 2 brigades to coordinate, or if you roll exceptionally well, you can get 3 or even all. And some of these are modified by things such as the division leader's coordination um, modifier, of which Heath actually has a 0, so he doesn't get to help out any, which is a bummer, but some other better divisional leaders can add 1 to it. And let's see, those are the only modifiers are the division leader's coordination rating. So that's how it's done. So you'll have to look at your charts and tables to see what the brigade coordination table looks like. But basically, the modified die roll, if it's equal to or less than 2, you get the dreaded confusion result where nobody does anything. On a 3 through 6, you simply fail and um, have to activate brigades one at a time. 7 through 9, you get 2 brigades of your choice to coordinate. 10 or 11, you get 3 brigades of the owning player's choice to coordinate. And if you get 12 or more, then all of them, the entire division gets to coordinate and activate as if they were all one brigade. Okay. The other mitigating factor with this is obviously in this situation here where we've got a mix of brigades in attack and 1 over here in advance. if you're contemplating a big Zulu rush, you'll probably want to have all of your units under attack orders. So when Heath's division is drawn, the first thing Heath has to decide is whether or not any of the brigades are going to attempt to change their orders. And then after that, he can commit to attempting to coordinate the brigades. You do it in this order because you pretty much have to live with the result. So, in other words, if the Confederate player, deems that it is imperative that Davis join in on this assault, but he also has to make the risk that Davis will not change his own orders. And actually, we um, started with Pettigrew in advance orders as well. So both of those are going to have to attempt to change their orders and then see if they're able to coordinate. Okay, so let's try a trial run of this and see what happens. So let's assume that the Heath activation comes out of the cup or out of the draw pool sometime mid-turn. And the first thing that Heath is going to do is to assume that he's going to be lucky and he's going to be able to get multiple brigades able to attack. So Archer here is already under attack orders. So Pettigrew and Davis will each attempt to change their orders on their own initiative. And then after that, Heath is going to attempt to coordinate. So you have to basically commit to all of that because you don't know what the end result is going to be, and that's part of the reason the rules are there, to simulate the fact that the player is omnipotent and knows more than the actual commanders on the field. So to simulate that, you have to commit to that, and whatever you end up with as far as coordination and orders, you just have to play the hand you're dealt. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's just assume that we're going to attempt for Davis to change his orders, then Pettigrew, and then we're going to roll for coordination. Okay, so we're going to start here with Davis, and as you can see, he has a 0 order change there on the bottom right of his counter. So he has to roll unmodified. So we roll a die and we get a 0. So right away, that's pretty bad. So not only is he going to retain his advance orders, he's not going to move at all. He gets a retain and stand result. So, all right, that's bad. So now we move over to Pettigrew. He has a +2 modifier, and he rolls a 6. Added to 2 is 8. So all you need is 6. So he changes his order successfully to attack. Okay. So now we have 2 brigades that are under attack. So, okay. Normally, if you're successful at a brigade changing its order without a super division commander, you usually end up with 2 brigades coordinated. So this can still work. So now we go to the brigade coordination table. We see that Heath here in the top right has a 0 coordination modifier. So he rolls and he gets a 0. So the result is going to be confusion. As I said, below 2 is confusion. So now the activation is basically over because everybody's going to sit and do nothing. Um, Now let's assume, for the sake um, of this exercise, that he was successful at activating 2 brigades. Davis obviously would be stuck because he rolled retain and stand, but Broken Bro back here could move up. You could say activate him first, and then they could come up the road here and stop right here behind the main body. But if Heath were able to coordinate 2 brigades, he could declare those to be Archer and Pettigrew, and then he could get that Zulu rush attack. Or if he failed in his coordination, it didn't get confusion, but just failed, then he would have to activate each of the brigades independently, the way most activations run. Okay, so I hope I've explained that well enough for you to follow along at home and try it on your next game of GBACW. Um, Personally, I have had really poor luck, as I just illustrated, in being able to pull off a coordination. Um, I can remember once at Second Manassas when I had a bunch of Hood's divisions, or no, it wasn't Hood's division, but there were some Confederate divisions coming in from Longstreet's corps at the edge of the map, and the Union had moved a couple of Porter's Fifth Corps units around, and they had just left their flank dangling in the air. And I brought on the reinforcements and almost immediately had the perfect situation where if I was able to coordinate, I was going to have 2 or maybe 3 brigades just slamming into the flank of Porter's brigade, and a lot of them were already, pretty much fought out. So I would just be able to decimate the what was the Union left flank at that time. And I can remember one failing to even be able to change their orders from advance, where they entered, um, and I wasn't able to even launch a regular assault because I couldn't change my orders in the middle of the turn. And so I was stuck looking at this great opportunity, and I just couldn't take advantage of it. And to make things worse, Porter was able to bring up some reinforcements and launch into the Confederate forces that were formed there, and they actually got the better of the combat. So those are the vagaries of Civil War combat. But anyway, I hope this example works out for you. And if not, let me know, and maybe I'll film another version of this with a little more die rolling and examples. But I think I've gotten my point across. So anyway, this has been Stigler, and happy die rolling and Civil War fighting, and we'll see you across the table.